something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? Hope you've had a good long weekend in my case. It wasn't really a long weekend, but I'm sorry about last night. Life sometimes gets in the way, and that's what happened yesterday. I've got a bit of news that knocked me to six or sideways a little bit, and I needed to try and get that around my head a little bit, but better that I keep my mouth shut in those times. Otherwise, I wind up saying things I might regret later. So my apologies for not being around last night. I hope you had a nice long weekend and life, the universe, and everything is going well in your part of the world. I have heard from many of you. Thank you very much for your concern. No, I'm not actually ill this time. This week, touch wood, everything seems to be going quite well. And about bloody time, I should say. And just in time, because we're heading off on Saturday to head to Canberra for Paul Offey's appeal. Of course, Paul is Freedom Truck owner. That is the Freedom Truck, and they took that off him at the march in Canberra coming up 4 years ago, a bit over 4 years ago. And he was found guilty and fined on two charges, $1,000 each. He's appealing those fines and appealing those convictions, and that's what we're heading down there for. That doesn't mean that Paul's going to get his truck back. And that's a whole other story, and part of the reason why I find it important that we go to Canberra and we tell this story from the word go. Depending on what happens with this appeal, the access to the truck or the gateway to getting the truck back either stays open or is closed completely. So this is quite an important an event in the scheme of things, and it will draw a line, I would suspect, under most of it once this is finished. But we need your help. If you can help with accommodation, we're not staying down there for a week or a month or anything long, and we're taking the cheapest places we possibly can. In fact, it's a cabin in a caravan park. It's $150 a night. Probably need 3 nights just to be sure. It might only be 2. Paul, depending on how he delivers his appeal, and Paul has to deliver it. He has to represent himself, remember. Could go into Tuesday, in which case we'll stay Tuesday night. But if you can help, we could really use it at the moment. And there is some other news I'm not going to lay on you tonight, but there is some other news in the background, which does mean we are going to need a lot more support if we are to keep going here at the channel. We're working on ways and means of taking as much of that burden on as we can. However, it just may not be possible. And if that is the case, then certainly in its current form, I don't know that we'll be able to keep going the way we are. It is just proving to be almost unsustainable cost-wise, and I haven't even got the bus going yet. So, well, the bus is going, but I haven't started moving it, if you know what I mean. So we really do need a bit of support. And I know it is tough all round for everybody, and it's, one of the hardest things I've ever done to sit here and tell you about it. But as Vince will testify, if we don't do this, we just can't keep going on forever. It's that simple. So any help that you can give will be gratefully received, and I hope I return value for money. That's my goal in everything that we do here. And to that end, let's move into tonight's show, shall we? You can go and check out our website, vofhq.com. There's a couple of interesting things stuck on the front page there you might want to read, but our donation page is there as well. You can just click on that link if you'd like to donate, or if maybe you want to buy a hat or a piece of merch that we have, then you could go to merch.vofhq.com and click on the shop sign there, and that'll probably give you an idea of what you can and can't get. Vince was working on potentially a new cup design. I was going to show you that, and I think I've deleted it for some other images I've had to put in here tonight. But we might have a new cup design coming up very shortly. But I thought I'd kick off tonight's show with headlines you don't ever expect to read or hear, like dead baby humpback whale to be tested for bird flu. I shit you not. A newborn humpback whale that was found stranded on a beach in Cronulla, that's down in Sydney, has died, and it will now be tested for the H5N1 bird flu virus. It comes after the deadly disease was detected in multiple states across the country in birds. Now, I'm going back to about a grade 6 petition that myself and a girl called Samantha Ingle put together and sent to the Prime Minister to stop whaling in this country. Interestingly, we were successful. However, humpback whales, in my research at the time, I remember ate krill. They didn't eat birds. Now, while some birds, I guess, may sit on a whale if it's on the surface long enough, I'm not sure that they're going to do too much damage. How would the bird get to give the flu to? Well, very good question, Vince. New news, birds have learnt to swim underwater. Look, I know that birds have been caught in the mouths of humpback whales when they get up under a bait ball. Sometimes the birds might, miscommunicate, decoordinate, and wind up in the mouth of one of those rather large humpbacks. It is my understanding that anything that shouldn't be, or anything that's larger than what krill should be, gets filtered out the gills, or filtered out somewhere. So that the bird, while it may not survive the trip through the gob, I don't know, will eventually float back to the surface or become food for another big fish that likes, bird. Whales, not known for birds. But anyway, this is the kind of madness in the headlines that we're seeing, and we're seeing them everywhere. I can't help but think they must be taking the P15S and just trying to wake the world up by getting us to laugh at it. Do you think that could be the case? Well, maybe. Now, last week, there were a lot of comments after Donald Trump's Friday morning, Thursday night, his time speech to the nation. A speech that NBC, ABC, and CNN refused to take at all. And here, the ABC took the first 5 minutes of it before Laura Tingle came on and said, oh, look, we've heard all this before. And moving on, not going to talk about it. So our ABC, your ABC, decided that nothing Donald Trump was saying was worthy of hearing, which I guess in an Australian context is not so disturbing. However, in America, when major network broadcasters like NBC, like ABC, refuse to take, and they're what we call the terrestrial broadcasters. So they have services like our Channel 9, Channel 7, the ABC, if you like. Here, Channel 10, I'm not sure what services they provide anymore. But if you've got an aerial on your roof and you get television through it, that's called a terrestrial TV service. Now, they're losing money hand over fist, these terrestrial services, and they're losing it to the pay TV companies, the streaming services, and such like. Now, I don't know why or how we have managed to get to a point where the media seems to dictate where the narrative is held and goes for the next few days, weeks, or months. But last week, that changed with a lot of what Donald Trump was saying. And now, these terrestrial services are going to be called into question when it comes to license renewal time. under US broadcast regulations, and I suspect under Australian laws would be similar, but under US broadcast regulations, there is a certain rule that would stop a network not putting on a message to the people from the President of the United States of America. For all they knew, he could well have been announcing World War III, or he could have been announcing Nasara Jassara, in which case they probably didn't want to report either of them. Nasara Jassara, more on that later, but there are things coming up. Now, because of what's come out since Donald Trump's Thursday night speech to the nation, over the weekend, there's been a lot of information that's been brought to hand, including, a very good observation put out by a guy called Roscoe Smith. Now, let me get this straight, he says. The CIA colluded with China to write negative news articles, create fake driver's licenses, and cheat our elections with mail-in ballots. The CIA and media covered it up from the president and the American people. And the Democrats put laws in to protect and exploit this cheating scandal operation, then put people like Tina Peters in prison for exposing their cover-up of the crime. They used this to steal an election that allowed 11 plus million people to cross open borders, 40-year record inflation, put thousands of Americans in prison for protesting a stolen election, and labelled as domestic terrorists. We need to null and void all auto pen decisions, senator and House appointments that were fraudulent, undo Ketanji Jackson Brown's appointment to the Supreme Court, and disqualify anyone from Joe Biden's administration from running for office ever again. And the big one is, still haven't seen any arrests. Well, that might be changing, because arrests are planned, if you are listening to what they're saying. The drums are beating, and the arrests, if you listen to the drums, will kick off on the 27th, 28th of July, which is interesting because it happens to coincide with our EBS, and there will be an American EBS around the same time. Now, one of the more interesting things about the American EBS, and I'm not sure whether or not it's going to come from to Australia or not, but one of the more interesting things about the EBS planned for America, at this juncture at any rate, is that they're saying Michael Jackson is going to appear and announce what the hell's going on, and that he's not dead, and the reasoning behind it. That would be a hell of an EBS. Don't know that will be the case. And if it is, maybe many people will miss it, because there is a huge push on Facebook and other places to get people to turn their mobile phones off at 2:00 next Monday, I think it is, when the EBS is due to take place. Now, there are a couple of emergency services who are threatening to boycott this $132 million alert system. That's bullshit. Those emergency services have no control over that emergency broadcast system. They will have to feed into it if they want an emergency broadcast made. They don't have to play along just for this test. And if they aren't going to play along with this particular system that cost us $137 million, and, well, it remains to be seen how well it works, what are you going to use in its place? And to those people who are planning on turning their mobile phone off or sticking it in an EMP bag or box or tin or whatever, look, all power to you. If it makes you feel better to do that, I think you'll be fine. Mind you, I think you'll be fine if you don't do it too. I'm going to be 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I've got another phone here that I will turn on. Interestingly, it did have a phone number, but it doesn't at the moment. But if it's turned on, I'm thinking it may receive an EBS. So I'll leave that one turned on, and I might put my phone in the Milo tin that Black Sheep sent me. If you're wondering how to make yourself a very good little EMP-proof box or tin, get yourself a Milo tin, put some cardboard around the inside of it and across the inside of the lid, put your phone in that, put the lid down on it, you got no problems. But yeah, going to be an interesting time with this EBS. And I see no point in really ignoring it or turning your phone off, because they're only sending you a message to say this is an EBS. They're not asking you to click on a link or subscribe to them or like them or send them money. And if they are, then it's probably, not the EBS you were expecting. So I don't see the point in saying, oh, God, turn it off. Let's be lemmings. Let's not hear what's happening in the world. If this is the way they choose to communicate to the masses, you don't really have an opportunity or an alternative other than to stick your head in the sand. And you know what happens when you put your head in the sand? You leave your ass up in the air. And when you leave your ass up in the air, nasty things can come along and roost there. Aussie Patriot, you're a wonderful human being. Thank you very much for your very kind donation. And folks, yeah, you can do that with a sticker in the show tonight, or you can do it online at our website, vofhq.com/donations. And thank you for any help that you can give us. We gratefully appreciate it. Here come the zombies. Ain't that the truth? Well, speaking of the zombies, $66 million is given to the Muslims to combat Islamophobia. In that case, I gather those Islamophobes would be the zombies. So Albo has decided to announce a huge raft of measures to help combat Islamophobia, including 66, I think that's a very interesting number, $66 million in funding for a Muslim police cohesion team, social cohesion team. $66 million for a Muslim social cohesion team. What are they going to be doing? Throwing parties in Lakemba, bringing the social community together to be, social. Little concerning, but it doesn't stop there. $650,000 for this climate-crying clown to fly a whole bunch of his climate-crying clown underlings and underthings to the next Turkish summit on climate crying. There is another number being thrown around at the moment. That's $4.5 million. That is how much we've had to fork out to send, I think it was some 300 delegates to the last Climate Criers meeting, which was in Brazil earlier this year from memory. I forget what they call it. It's so memorable. Cop something or other. Cop it in the arse, it sounds like to me, but that's basically what they're doing to the world. At any rate, that climate crying conference in Turkey is likely to cost us $650,000. How out of touch is Albo Sleazy and his government to think that the Australian taxpayer right now would be okay with sending a bunch of climate activists, Aboriginal groups, and, of course, the shiny-ass bureaucrats to a luxury Turkish beachside resort for this year's Climate Crying Talkfest. I got to say, at $650K, we got out cheaper than Brazil, but I think that's because they're not taking as many people. Now, is there any greater example of a government that is so out of touch with the reality of the people it supposedly is representing? Could there be any greater example? Well, there probably could be. We've just got to look at other government spending. And God knows there is a shitload of waste in government spending. There always has been, there always will be, but maybe there won't always will be, because if we get the right people in the right places in power, this all stops. And maybe instead of suffering the biggest fall in living standards in the entire industrial world, as this goose has presided over here in Australia, maybe we can get some people who actually know what they're doing, who actually have been in business, who understand business, know what it takes to make a business work. Know you have to have money coming in the door before you can have money going out the door. It is a pretty basic understanding in economics. Got to have something coming in, got to have something going out. The idea is that you pay less for what's coming in and you get more for what's going out. At least don't take that for granted. I only got 18 in economics, or was that 22? I get my accounting and my economics exams mixed up. 18 for one, 22 for the other. Equally both as unmemorable as each other. Moving on, people are talking about arrests. Well, the arrests might follow. This is a military truck in front of a centralized or central bank in New York City, I think it is. This is over the weekend. Now, this pulled up, and those cases are rack cases pertaining or claiming to be full of servers. Now, these servers have been pulled from a room that supposedly is a deep state controlled room. And on those servers, all the information, all the data that anybody in the world would need to make a case against the deep state. They found, after the first findings, they found this, or they've been releasing a list of findings every day for the last couple of days. The first findings, $2.3 trillion worth of dollars moved through shell accounts registered to charitable foundations. You can probably guess which charitable foundations moved the bulk of that. Direct payment channels between central banks and major media networks. They weren't reporting the news, they were paid to bury it. A classified sub-ledger, codenamed Phoenix Fund, financing both sides of every major conflict since 1971. The hidden language that they use? Well, a foundation donation is part of the bribe network. Media partnership grants? Their narrative control payments, and humanitarian transfers equals weapons financing. So we're currently sitting in phase 3 of a 4-phase operation, and phase 4, from what I'm hearing, is meant to kick off next week. The White Hats now say they have the master list. All the politicians, bankers, media executives, everybody who knew about this is now fully exposed. We shall wait and see what happens next week, I guess. After the EBS here in Australia on the 27th at 2 p.m, which would make it Sunday night sometime in America. Unlikely that they're going to do it then, but maybe they're just waiting to confirm Australia's EBS signal does work. We shall wait and see. Most smartphone speakers reproduce 300 hertz to 15,000 hertz. For many phones, better flagship phones reach 150 to 18,000. Not reproduce full human hearing range, 20 to 20. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Vince. That's great. Now, do you want to come on and explain what that means?
Just quickly, what it means, a lot of people are worried that they're sending some sort of signal through the phones with the emergency app, which is a broadcast app, and I've got a whole heap more information on how that works. But effectively, it does mean that they're unable to send something through the phone that we wouldn't normally hear anyway, because hearing is greater than the phone speakers are capable of producing. That's what it means. So some mysterious frequency, forget it.
Right. Beautiful. Love your work. Well thought out. Eric Trump, Donald's son, you know, the fella that, well, he has rather interesting friends. He also has some pretty big business interests and has invested a lot of the Trump money in it. One of the more interesting things that he appears to invested in is a humanoid robotics company, and it is preparing its robots for war. Now, Eric Trump works as a chief strategy advisor for this company, and they deal, obviously, in robotics. Interesting that that story came out, and then this followed. So, I don't know, AI generated or not, I think we are looking at the future. Certainly, for certain specialist warfares, we are certainly looking at the future. And Eric Trump, strategic advisor, investor, and bearing in mind that Eric and I think Don Jr. and Ivanka all now have a say in how the company is run, then the Trump Holdings stuff could also be investing in there too. Iron Man, yeah, so true that. So true. Andrew from Lightning Ridge. Now, oh God, I think I've run out of room again tonight. Just while I saw a thing come up from Andrew, we have puppies. Now, I did tell you that they are going to grow up to be rather large puppies. Here are the puppies now. They are just getting onto solids, and thankfully, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 or 10 of them there. 8, I think we wound up with eventually. I might be double seeing things. I think they're only eating a sheep combined at the moment, but he's just getting them onto solids. If you are looking for a good dog, then reach out in the chat or reach out to me and I'll put you in touch with Andrew. The dogs are in Lightning Ridge. So if you'd like an interesting side trip to go and pick them up, 9 of them. Thank you, Andrew. Then you might even get a look inside an opal mine if you can fit down the hole. I'll leave that where it is. Denmark. Oh, actually, before I do that, I'll play you another video. This is probably one of the most concerning things, and I think I spoke about it last week. But there is a gentleman here who explains it much better than I. Now, anybody who's ever had kids and tried to get them to eat vegetables and fruits that have seeds knows that it can be difficult. I personally myself was not a fan of tomatoes, or more particularly the seeds in the tomatoes, all through my junior years. And yet now, love tomatoes, love them to bits. Don't mind the seedy bits at all. Don't think that I'm going to start growing tomato plants out of me because I swallowed a seed or any of those other horrible things that kids do. However, because of, I perceive what will be a perceived demand from society not to have seeds in things because it makes it easier to eat. Oh, well, it's a seedless this or it's a seedless that. Can I suggest to you now, if you are buying seedless anything, stop buying seedless stuff straight away. And this is why.
We are slowly getting rid of all seeds in fruits and vegetables. And honestly, it's brilliant. Because once every apple, grape, watermelon and tomato is seedless, guess who controls life itself? No more planting your own food. No more saving seeds for next season. Everything you eat, everything that grows, will come from our labs. And when the last natural seed is gone, that's when it gets fun. We can make them rare, expensive, maybe even licensed. Only billionaires that will have gardens, and everyone else will have to subscribe to eat. Sounds insane, right? But it's already happening. Seedless isn't convenience, it's containment. Every time you pick up a seedless fruit, you're holding a future that can't reproduce. So yeah, expect more seedless, everything. Because the easiest way to control the world is to stop it from growing. So remember to stay safe out there.
How true is that? The easiest way to stop the world or to control the world is to stop it growing its own food. And that is something we desperately, desperately have to try and avoid. That is why what happens to our farmers is so important. And I know many of you will have watched Clarkson's Farm. the most recent season, and in there you'll see what a failure of a cropping season they had. Now, at some point, a lot of them, maybe not Clarkson's farm, but many farmers grow their own seeds. I know my uncle used to grow potatoes, and a big spud farmer, but we would always be keeping bags of spuds and use them for seed for the next season. And if you can't do that, if all of a sudden, for whatever reason, government regulation, or you're not allowed to keep the seed, or not allowed to keep those potatoes for seed like we were doing, then no more potatoes, no more anything, unless you go to the shop, unless you pay whatever fee they ordain you need to pay. This is one of the most concerning control aspects I think the world is yet to wake up to. And it is now, I think, for any reasonable person beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have had chemicals sprayed on us. If you are still of the mind that there are only contrails above us, I don't know that you can be helped. There is so much information available on not just the chemtrails, but what they are spraying, how they spray it, not necessarily exactly who sprays it, but there are certain organizations that do claim to do it. They do it under the guise of weather modification, of course, and modifying the weather is one of the great things that we get to do here. We can bring rain to flooded areas, or we can bring no rain to areas that really need it when it needs it. So crops don't grow. They grow to a third of their size. They don't produce enough seed to create a good crop for next year and be able to sustain whatever food products needed to be made out of this year's crop. And this is being engineered against us by a monstrous group hidden, for all intents and purposes, to the open eyes of the world. And there is more of it coming. There's a new vaccine on the way.
I want to share with you a product that's on the market, a vaccine called Vaxilis. I pulled the package insert, and here it is. This is insane. This vaccine has 6 vaccines in one: diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio, Haemophilus B, and hepatitis B. 6 in one. Let's take a look at the package insert. First of all, they tell us that epinephrine and other appropriate agents and equipment must be available for immediate use if you're going to be giving this vaccination. Okay, you got my attention. This vaccine is indicated for 6 weeks old through 4 years old. It goes on to say a review by the Institute of Medicine found evidence for a causal, not correlation, causal relationship between tetanus toxoid, one of the components, and both brachial neuritis and Guillain-Barré syndrome. Look that up, Guillain-Barré. It's a type of paralysis. It looks a lot like polio. It also says apnea, that's difficulty breathing, you kind of stop breathing, following intramuscular vaccination, has been observed in some infants. Oh, but it gets better. First of all, studies that brought this product to market, there is not a single randomized controlled study with an inert placebo. It's only tested against other vaccinations. Ingredients, you're going to love this. 319 micrograms of aluminum is used as an adjuvant. That is, it stimulates the immune system to wake up to the antigens that are in this vaccine. Other ingredients: formaldehyde, bovine serum albumin, that's albumin or protein that comes from cows. Then they put some antibiotics in here: neomycin, streptomycin, polymyxin B. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, my favorite part, section 13.1. It's right here. I'm not making this up. Vaxilis has not been evaluated for carcinogenic or mutagenic potential or impairment of fertility.
Not been evaluated for impairment of fertility, amongst other things. So be very, very, very careful if you've got young'uns coming into your lives, folks. If you know people who are pregnant and are going to have babies, or who have indeed had them in the recent past, this vaccine is something they will offer up from 6 weeks of age. And as you can hear, oh, it's so easy. You get 6 in one. Now, why would your kid need tetanus? Have you jabbed him with a rusty nail? Do you intend to? Nobody ever intends it, but vaccine Tetanus is the kind of thing that can be administered later, even though we did find back during Convid that they had allegedly changed the mix in the tetanus needle as well, so that it gave you the dose at the same time. So bear that in mind. Yeah, well, interesting, Robert. You're talking about the Hippocratic Oath, and that's supposedly the first rule of becoming a doctor: do no harm. They don't take the Hippocratic Oath anymore. They take a different oath, and doing no harm isn't mentioned. There is a reason that they call what they do a practice. Just saying. Hey, Denmark making some moves. They're planning on banning the burqa in schools and universities. It's Muslim social control. I don't know that it's... Well, there's going to be a bit of a kick-up about it, have absolutely no doubt. But Denmark have led the way, I think, in Europe against the burqa for some time. It hasn't been, I don't think, available on or meant to be worn on the streets in public now for a couple of years, and universities were the last sort of ditch effort for that. So banning the burqa there, interesting. There is a big pushback happening in Europe at the moment with regard to, well, a great many things, but one of the larger things has been European immigration, and the fact that the European Parliament is now starting to recognize that this open borders policy that has pervaded Europe and has decimated a number of countries. Denmark, France would say that, would argue that they're having, some significant immigration issues. Greece, I think, we're having some significant immigration issues, but the Greeks have a way of sorting those out, a bit like the Tongans and the Nauruans. But there is a group or a country that is tearing itself apart because of what's happening in Europe with migrants, the laws being broken, the murders being committed, the ongoing travesties of justice that are seeing their people locked up and the perpetrators of these crimes being let free. And that country is Germany. Now, in the European Parliament, they have a member there called Christine Anderson, who is a spectacular representative for the people of Germany. The people of Germany who think clearly, who are fair-minded, and who don't want to see their country decimated by outsiders.
This whole COVID madness, this so-called pandemic, it was just a test balloon, a gigantic test balloon. Well, for what, you ask? Well, to see how far they could go, to see what exactly they would have to do to get free individuals in a free and democratic society to consent to being forced into compliance. That's what they were trying to establish. That's what they were trying to figure out. And they have figured it out. Trust me, they are much smarter now. The goal ultimately is to transform our free and democratic societies, into totalitarian societies. Their goal is to strip each and every one of us of our fundamental rights of freedom, democracy, the rule of law. They want to get rid of all of this. This whole COVID thing had never anything to do with public health. It never had anything to do with breaking waves. It always had to do with breaking people in order to make us a part of a mindless, malleable mass, which they can totally control, and we will be completely dependent upon this globalitarian elite. So I'm really imploring the people and all the peoples around the world, for God's sake, stop giving your democratically elected governments the benefit of the doubt. They are not deserving of that. They are not. Stop rationalizing whatever your government is doing. Stop rationalizing and come up with some good intentions. They have no good intentions. Never. As I said before, in the entire history of mankind, there has never been a political elite concerned about the well-being of regular people. And it isn't any different now. Why should it? Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because I can tell you, you cannot comply your way out of a tyranny. It is impossible. Trying to do so, you will only feed a gigantic alligator in the hopes of being eaten last. But guess what? Your turn will come, and then you will be the one swallowed up. I also have to ask the people, end your silence. Speak up. For God's sake, stop complying. Start rebelling. They're out to get you if you do not resist.
Listen to what she says. She's 100% on the money. Now, while the European Parliament is arguably not terribly powerful, she is one of the greatest voices in Europe at the moment, speaking common sense, and we should see a lot more of her. Now, Convid has spread into a variety of areas, and we've known that mRNA vaccines have been now started to be used broadly across other species. This might make you consider or reconsider where you go and get your takeaways from.
So if you want to live, you cannot eat here. Fucking definitely can't eat there. Or this place right here. Can't eat there. Or this place right here. But here's why. Quick story. My cousins own the biggest dairy farm in the state of New Jersey. My other cousins own the biggest growing farm in the state of New Jersey. It's called Lubick Corn. You can Google that shit. They cannot get insurance on their animals unless they use GMO feed, and their animals cannot be sold to those places I just pointed out unless they're shot full of hormones called IGF-1, insulin growth factor 1, which is why chicken breasts are this big. It's why guys are huge, walking around huge, because they're taking that shit. Without the insurance companies, okay, the animals are all sick, which means that they all have to be vaccinated. Big Pharma's number one customer is big agriculture. 85% of everything Big Pharma puts out, big agriculture puts in the animal, and you buy that shit. You can't buy anything from Walmart, anything from your local grocery store, unless it's born in your city, raised in your city, died in your city, grass-fed. Don't fucking eat it, and don't eat in those places, because if you do, you're going to wind up getting cancer, and you're going to wind up getting fat, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not your fault. It's illegal in France and Germany, these hormones. IGF-1, Google that shit. Love you. It's a downfall. See you.
There you go. Learn something new every day. I believe that they're using those sorts of growth hormones in a variety of meal subsidies being fed to our animals, particularly in feedlots, but potentially on farms around the country as well. It is a little bit disconcerting. And I know many people don't eat in fast food restaurants like McDonald's anymore because of what they perceive to be contamination of the meat. This now is starting to show other lines of business. But isn't it every business? I mean, he's pulled half a dozen out there, but unless you are absolutely sure that the meat you are getting has come out of a paddock, off a cow that's come out of a clean paddock, been, butchered by somebody who isn't injecting it full of preservatives and other bits and pieces. This is where I think paddock to plate companies and family organizations are doing so well at the moment. However, we probably should investigate exactly what they are being forced to put into their cattle before they're slaughtered and sent out to us all, before we get too excited about how it all works. But yeah, I'd be a bit concerned about where you're getting your stuff. Another plug for fornicators. Yeah, quite possibly, mate. We'll find something, an Australian cow to talk about. Here's something that'll might keep some of you awake at night, but it appears those arrests are on the way. The FBI have obtained court orders to exhume the body of Barack Obama's personal chef after the Massachusetts police closed the case following a very large donation from an Obama-backed non-profit. Too many unanswered questions is the reason the investigation is being opened again. Now, the feds feel that there are a great many red flags about the way that the investigation into Obama's chef's death was handled. He was found in water, drowned. Well, that was supposedly what happened to him. But he was also a very, very good swimmer, used to swim at this particular spot, if not on a daily basis, then on a very regular basis. And it's very strange that this bloke was out without somebody else around him at the time. There's a lot of very weird questions about how he died. And it appears that when the local police started asking questions, all of a sudden, there was a big donation, and you don't need to talk about this anymore. We'll look into it. It's all sorted. He was a nice bloke. Now, Obama's chef was implicated, you might remember, in a bit of a drama. After he left office, the chef was, I think, still in his employ, but they'd had a falling out, and he made some noise about writing a book about what it was like to be the Obama's chef. That was enough to set the bells ringing, and the bloke sadly wound up going for a swim and forgetting how to swim. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that investigation. And many of those details, I believe, are held in various files that possibly were in those servers we were talking about there a little earlier. So I would love to see arrests next week that include the person playing Hillary Clinton, the person playing Barack Obama. I think we'll see Joe Biden die in the next week or two. I think that'll be the next probably reasonable thing. But there is still an interesting intersect. It might just be a coincidence, but, are there ever coincidences? There's an interesting intersect between our EBS and a lot of dates and announcements and potential big announcements coming out of America. So it might just be, a fluke. The Large Hadron Collider, you might recall, is a very large technical scientific piece of kit that is located in Switzerland. In fact, it's located under Switzerland and parts of France and maybe Italy. It's a 27-kilometer long circle where they can fire a laser in both directions or a beam, and that beam hits, and that is called a collision. And where that beam collides, it splits atoms or opens dimensional portals, depending on what you say, think, or feel about CERN. Now, we've all seen the opening ceremonies for CERN, the very demonic ceremonies. Some of you may have seen the video made of what was claiming to be a sacrifice on the front lawns of CERN. In fact, a naked woman stabbed to death on the CERN statue out the front of the place. Don't know that that's actually a real video, by the way, but it was certainly out there. Now, it closed down in 2018 and didn't open again until 2022. A lot of things changed between 2018 and 2022, and we've just talked about some of them. Well, they've closed it down again, and this time it's going to be closed until 2030. So near enough to 4 years offline again. This Hadron Collider, if you understand the science and what they tell us about the science, is used by scientists to find the Higgs boson, the God particle, if you like, and test that theory. Well, maybe they did find it. Maybe they did open dimensional portals or a portal to hell, and God knows what came through. There has been stories that part of the reason that this thing is 27 kilometers long is it creates an EMF or electromagnetic field that helps contain whatever has come through this breach in CERN. Now, if they've turned that off, one of two things has happened. Whatever they were trying to contain has gone home, or it's got out. Just trying to apply a bit of logic. Speaking of logic, you may see some new disclosure documents and promotion coming across your screens over the next day or two. It too happens to coincide happily with all sorts of weird things. Friday being the day for this one, though, I think Friday. Yes, Friday, the 24th. Project 011, the Grey Encounter. I started seeing this stuff today, and I thought, oh, here we go. Project Bluebeam on the way. It's not quite that serious, unfortunately. Don't get too excited. It looks like this is a video game that's coming out. However, it looks like a video game that will have... thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. It looks like a video game that will have some great graphics, and unless you've played the video game, you might misinterpret some of those graphics if seen in isolation as a grey encounter. Bear that in mind over the next couple of days while we see all sorts of weird shit come out about greys over the course of the next week. Of course, that's provided there is a next week after the EBS. Now, before we go tonight, I wanted to mention an old saying. Jack of all trades, master of none. Do you remember that? My dad used to call me that. Jack of all trades, master of none. It was only over the weekend that I found out that there was another line to that, and I feel much better now knowing that it was an unfinished statement. This is how it should read. Jack of all trades, master of none, but often better than a master of one. You can let that sink in while I play you this very interesting video. Mitsubishi, God love them, the Japanese super company known for producing such amazing vehicles as the Sigma Scorpion. They've decided to get into rocket building. I think they've, in fairness, been into rocket building for a fair bit of time. But they've been rocket testing over the weekend. And I saw this rocket test, and once again, I thought it was one of those moments where they're taking the piss. If this doesn't look weird to you, thanks, Giselle. If this doesn't look familiar to you, then you probably didn't grow up in Australia anywhere from 1953 or 4 or 8, it might have been, through to, I think it was 1999. And there you have it. I think we've just about run to the end of the show tonight. Please do like and subscribe, folks. Share it around if you think you got a laugh or if you've got something useful out of it. We'd love to have more of you come and join us. And speaking of coming and joining us, you can come and be part of all the fun and festivities, not that there'll be many in Canberra, next Monday for Paul's hearing. Now, it'll get underway at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, or at least we'll be there from 9 a.m. And it's in front of 3 justices. You will be allowed in the court. I'm not sure how many seats there will be in the court. There may not be hundreds. But at any rate, it would be great to see as many people there as we can possibly get for support. And we will arrange a dinner. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Kingo on Monday night for those people in Canberra who would like to catch up. Daniel, I will organise you to be able to come to that dinner if you want, mate. I'll come and pick you up and take you home again. Or depending on whatever else happens, there might be another reason. But if there are other folks in Canberra that want to catch up, then that would probably be the place. Monday night, guarantee we'll still be in town. And then Tuesday, we're either back at the court or we'll head off on Tuesday to head home. We would love to see as many people as possible in town. I'll be there from Sunday, we'll call it afternoon, and we might be able to do a bit of a catch-up on Sunday evening if you wanted. I might be able to catch up with Paul and Michael and a few others, although there probably will be some preparation work going on Sunday evening, so catching up with Paul might be a bit difficult. But we will endeavour to get as many people as we can. I know that there are people coming from Victoria, South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, obviously. And I did hear that there was somebody from Tasmania who just happens to be on the mainland and is going to fly into Canberra on that day to be with us. So it remains to be seen whether or not that happens, but fingers crossed. We'd love to see you there at the Supreme Court House in Canberra in the ACT on the 27th at 9 a.m. That's where we're going to be. Yes, have a good night, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, Donna. And thank you to everybody who has reached into their pocket to put a little something in ours tonight. I can't appreciate you enough. I can't thank you enough. And the dog down here is going to scratch its way out of the bus here shortly, so I'm figuring that I better go before it leaves me a deposit that I can't go and put in a bank. Have yourself a lovely evening, folks, and look forward to speaking to you again on the morrow. Be safe if you're out there on the roads, because there are dickheads out there everywhere, and I ran into a couple of them, not physically, thankfully, not physically. I was traveling behind one who I don't know what he was doing, certainly not watching the road, managed to drive across 2 lanes of traffic and nearly hit the center dividing wall of a 4-lane highway. And then I saw another fool open his door into traffic and have that door taken off. Haven't seen that in a while. So, yes, folks, just beware. Opening your doors on a busy road. Look in the rear vision mirror. Otherwise, there may well be a small light truck coming past doing 60 kilometres an hour. And trust me, it takes a 15th of a second to tear your door clean off. That bloke was a dickhead.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!